for downloading this episode of Cork Talk with me, Tim Atkin. A weekly conversation with some of the most famous people in the world of wine. José Vouillamoz is a botanist, ampelographer and grape geneticist who's made a significant contribution to our understanding of the past, present and future of wine. Co-author of the monumental wine grapes, as well as books on France and his native Switzerland, he's a scientist who can convey his knowledge to a wider audience, combining expertise and charm with a journalist's eye for a good story. He's a truly fascinating interviewee. Hi, José, and welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you very much.
You are in Switzerland, aren't you? Lucky man in the Valais?
Yes, I am in Valais where I was born, surrounded by vineyards since my childhood. A beautiful place.
I mean, you were born and brought up there, weren't you, basically? And it is the country's most famous wine region.
Yes, Valais is the largest wine region in Switzerland, and it's the region where you can find the most important indigenous grape varieties.
Interesting.
Like Arvin or Petit Arvin,
yeah.
Which is everybody's favorite, and a lot of other varieties that I cherish.
So, I mean, you were born, you grew up surrounded by vineyards. Was wine part of your life? Were your parents wine drinkers? Did they have a little plot of vines, anything like that?
Well, I belong to one of the only families in Valais who did not own a vineyard. So somehow I had to take a revenge. And my revenge was to become a specialist of grape varieties. And but of course, wine was part of the childhood of the adulthood as well. And I used to say that in my baby bottle I had fondant. Which is not true, but
and a bit of raclette on the side or something like that. Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, exactly. And you started up studying not viticulture but biology, I think, at Lausanne University. Were grapevines part of that degree or not?
Not at all. No, I was always interested in biology, especially in plants. So I did my master degree in plants, in botany, and then a PhD thesis on a special genus of plants that nobody cares of. We were 3 specialists in the world, one in Germany, one in Austria, and probably that they were 70 years old or something, and me.
And where do the plants grow, those plants?
It's funny because it's a plant that is growing very often next to vineyards. So I have visited wine regions, in search for this plant. The name is Onosma. Nobody knows that. And I was always surrounded by vineyards when I was studying this plant because it had a very complicated and particular genetic. And I tried to figure out with all the genetic analysis, how was that possible that this plant was so diverse and so complex in terms of chromosome numbers and genetic composition, etc. So nothing to do with vines. And at the same time, I was becoming more and more of a wine lover. Mm-hmm. I was taking classes, how to taste, how to understand wine. I had a chance to meet Hugh Johnson when we released the book Wine Grapes, and he did not believe me when I told him that as a student, I had his small wine guide in my pocket, in my jacket. And I remember being in a wine shop and trying to understand all the Italian's appellation, French appellation. And I was thinking, I will never understand a word of this. It's so complex. Well, today I understand a few words.
I think you could say more than that. So his pocket guide was literally in your pocket, right?
It is. Yeah, it was really, he didn't believe me, but it was the truth. Yeah.
So you're getting interested in wine. And what took you to the University of California, Davis? Because you did postdoctoral work with Dr. Carol Meredith, who's also appeared on this podcast. What took you there?
I was using genetic techniques to understand this special plant. And at some point, since I was a wine lover, I thought to myself, couldn't we use the same techniques for grapes? So I checked it up. I was not the first in the world to have this idea because they already did. This is the use of genetic fingerprints, DNA identification. The first lab who did that was in Australia in 1993. And this technique of identifying organisms was created or was introduced in 1985 by Sir Alec Jeffrey. I think he got the Nobel Prize for that. Of course, it was for human genetics. Much more money for human genetic research. So 1985, we were able to identify an individual with DNA. The technique is rather simple, and I think everybody thinks that they know what it is about because thanks to COVID, we have heard the word PCR, and it's working with PCR. So you amplify some regions of the DNA, you look at them, you measure them, and then you have an identity card for the DNA. And it was done in 93 for grape varieties for identification. In 97, John Bowers, who was the PhD student at Carol Meredith Lab in UC Davis, was looking, in fact, he told me, he was using this technique to sort out the grape collection because it's very costly to maintain a grape collection. And let's say you have a row of a variety 1 and variety 12 is the same. You can delete one of them so you can save money. That's what he was doing. And by doing so, he noticed there were some correspondences in terms of the genetic composition of some grapes. And he thought that's weird. That might not be by chance. So he used statistics, and he was able in 1997 to find out the first natural parentage, which was Cabernet Sauvignon. So with his work, he was able to say that Cabernet Sauvignon is a natural progeny of Cabernet Franc and Sauvignon Blanc.
And that was the beginning of the whole science, really, was it?
It was the beginning, yeah. 97. And when I came across that, I thought that's fantastic. I want to do the same. Okay, I'm not the first in the world, but I will be the first in Switzerland.
Yeah.
So doing my PhD thesis on something else, I applied for a grant, and the Swiss government gave me a grant to go for 1 year in California to study the Swiss grapes with this technique. And that's how everything started.
And it's not even 30 years old. It's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just tell us, how does it work? Do you analyze seeds or leaves? What's the process exactly?
You can analyze almost any part of the plant except seeds. Because seeds represent the next generation. The seed is the result of sexual reproduction in the plant. So it's a new individual. You can analyze all the rest. Usually I take leaves for analysis. And I take very small leaves for 2 good reasons. The first one is that if you take a very small leaf, less than 1 centimeter in diameter, you have almost the same number of cells in a small leaf than in a big leaf. The big leaf simply has bigger cells, but the amount of DNA is almost the same.
Yeah.
And it's also very important to dry it very fast. Because when you take a leaf, the leaf is dead. So you have enzymes that start to digest the DNA. And to do so, they need water. If you take out the water, these enzymes cannot destroy the DNA and your DNA is safe. And once it's dried, you can use it 10, 20 years later, no problem.
Really? The DNA stays there?
Yeah.
How many varieties have been profiled in this way? Starting in 1987, what are we up to now? And I just wonder, is there a kind of database somewhere that all you scientists share with each other?
Yeah, I have my own private database because I did thousands of DNA profiles myself. I think I have one of the largest in the world. But the official one that is shared with scientists is based in Germany. It's called VIVC, so Vitis International Variety Catalogue.
VIVC.
Yeah. VIVC.de. And they have a lot of profiles. In my own database, I have a bit more than 3,000 different profiles. I think they have almost the same amount in this catalogue. And in France, in Montpellier, the INRA also has more than 3,000 profiles. And we are complementary. So this is very important because if you want to identify a grape, it's just like for human beings. I mean, let's say if you were suspected to be a criminal, and I take your DNA, it's very easy to make your profile, but then you need to check the profile against the database, and probably the FBI has the largest database, and we can say, oh, this is Tim Atkin, and he's a criminal.
Well, could you say his ancestors were criminals as well? Therefore, that's fitted to him, basically. It's fascinating. I just wonder how accurate it is. It's pretty fail-safe, is it?
Yeah, because it's based on statistics, probabilities, and if you want to be extremely scientific, you send me a leaf. I do the DNA profile, and I see that, for example, this is Syrah. If I am 100% scientific, I will not tell you it is Syrah. I will tell you there is one chance out of 1 billion of billion of billion of billion of billion that it is not Syrah.
Yeah. Because
it's statistics. You cannot say 100%, but it's extremely close.
You're as sure as you can ever be, basically.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about vines and in their natural state, because the first vines were wild vines that grew up trees. You call them married vines, don't you? I like that. Vitiforestry is, what other people call it. When were those vines, wild vines, first domesticated? Do we know where and when exactly? It seems open to question. Is that right?
Yeah. This is a fascinating topic. I have worked on this since 2003, together with Patrick McGovern.
Yeah, great man.
Great guy who passed away last year at the age of 80. And we had many adventures together, and we were together in southeastern Anatolia, southeastern Turkey. He was visiting archaeological sites, and I was visiting neighbor sites with wild grapevines. And we were really in the process of trying to identify where everything started. And our theory, more than 20 years ago, was that southeastern Anatolia, between the Tigris and Euphrates, the two rivers, was one of the candidates. 20 years later, 2023, a huge work led by Chinese people, which was a bit of a surprise to me, but more than 100 researchers put together their data, and they analyzed many more data than we did. And they partly confirmed what we said, but there are two different sites. So one of the origin is southeastern Anatolia, and the other one is the Caucasus, Transcaucasia, between Georgia and Armenia, which is not really much of a surprise. So everything started there approximately 11,000 years ago.
Yeah. And why were they domesticated? I mean, I think your theory and Patrick's as well. It was for alcohol. It wasn't for food. I mean, they weren't growing the grapes to eat them. They may have started off doing that, but it then became. They thought, oh, this is quite nice. It tastes quite good, and it gets you inebriated. Was that? Do you think? Are we pretty sure that's the case?
Well, that was Patrick McGovern's theory, which I think is very, very convincing, because if you look at the wild vine growing up on a tree, first of all, it's very difficult to get the fruits. You risk to break your neck climbing to get the fruits, and you need to be very quick before the birds, because the birds, once it's ripe, they will be on the fruit before you. So it's not an easy source of food. In the forest, you have many other options to get food rather than breaking your neck.
That are on the ground, you mean, basically?
Yeah. So we believe that some Neolithic people, probably women, because they were hunter-gatherers, so the gatherer were mostly women, they would have gathered some grapes, some bunches of grapes, and we believe that putting them in a basket or maybe in a rock crevice or some kind of a recipient, with the weight of the grapes, the juice would exude. And we know that the yeast for fermentation also exists on the skin.
On the skin of the berry.
On the skin of the berries. So it had started to ferment. We believe that they have tasted it, and with the euphoria that they experienced, they had only one thing in the mind: start again.
Yeah.
So this was serendipitous inebriation.
I like that, serendipitous inebriation.
Yeah. That gave the idea to continue. There is another theory. A friend of mine, Udo Hirsch, in Turkey, he has Galvary estate in Cappadocia. He believed that the reason was not alcohol, was what they call in Turkey pekmez. Pekmez is a kind of molasses of berries, which was used for the winter. It was a source of sugar and energy in the winter. It's also a possibility.
But that might have fermented as well, obviously, right?
No, it's not fermented.
Oh, it wasn't fermented, right? Okay, it was a sugar source, energy source. Yeah. And I mean, once they decided to domesticate vines, tell us a little bit about these hermaphrodite vines, and where vines can basically produce wines by themselves, right? You don't have male vines and female vines. Why are those hermaphroditic vines so important to the history of wine?
Yeah, this is what I have called the hermaphroditic hypothesis. I was the one to bring it up.
It's only a hypothesis, is it?
Well, hypothesis in scientific terms.
Yeah.
It's not the same meaning as the everyday people. Hypothesis is that you create a concept and you try to verify if it's possible or not. In this case, we observe in natural wild vines population, and I have observed that in southeastern Turkey, that the wild grapevine is what we call dioecious. It's a complicated botanical term to say that you either have plants that are 100% male or 100% female. Human beings are dioecious. Most of them.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're either 100% male or 100% female. And in natural population of wild grapes, we observe 2-3% of plants that are hermaphroditic. So they have male and female organs in the same plant, in the same flower. So if you are a Neolithic person and you like to get drunk with this juice and you want to plant it in front of your cave or your settlement, if you take cuttings, taking cuttings has been done for thousands of years with many plants, so they know how to take cuttings and plant. You take a cutting of a male plant and you put it in front of your settlement, nothing happens.
No grapes.
Never fruit. You take a cutting of a female, but there is no male around, you don't have any fruit. By complete chance, you take a cutting from a hermaphroditic plant, you have fruits every year, and you want to keep this one. So that was the starting point of domestication, was the complete chance of someone who took one of the rare plants that were hermaphroditic and started to propagate that.
How interesting, yeah. So trial and error, basically. They just looked at these and thought, hey, these ones work.
Absolutely.
And which are the world's most ancient domesticated varieties? Maybe we call them heritage grapes or something. I mean, I know Cabernet Franc is a very old grape variety. I think Savagnin, from what you say. What about Muscat? I mean, do we know which were the kind of original Vitis vinifera grapes?
Well, the problem is that we don't know the age of grape varieties. Even if we have names that have been mentioned since centuries, who can be sure that a very old mention of let's say Pinot would be exactly the same plant as the Pinot we have today? You cannot be sure. Since we propagate them by cuttings, we don't know their age, but we know today for certainty, for sure, that Savagnin Blanc is officially the oldest grape known in the world, because some archaeologists have found grape pips in Orléans, south of Paris, and these grape pips were analyzed with DNA, and one of them was 100% identical to Savagnin Blanc, and it was 900 years old. So this was scientific evidence that Savagnin is at least 900 years old.
And that's the oldest we know of, is it?
That's the oldest we have evidence for.
Yeah.
We can imagine that it's much older than that. Pinot, there's another study. They have found seeds of Pinot that are 600 years old. But I believe that both Pinot and Savagnin are much older than that. They are very, very old. And what is fascinating is that one is the father of the other.
Yeah. Oh, Pinot and Savagnin.
Yeah, and we don't know in which way because the mother is missing.
And you haven't found it yet?
Nobody has found. And they are so old that probably the suspected mother is not around anymore. Completely.
Because some of these varieties have just disappeared, right?
Disappeared completely, probably.
And how did these grape varieties move from those original regions where they were grown? So we talked about Eastern Anatolia and Transcaucasia. How did they move, and who moved them? And I just wondered, was it trade? Was it religion? Was it conquest? Or did this go with people who were conquering other places who needed wine when they got there? How did it work?
I think everything you mentioned is true. Trade, I think, is the most important, but also to conquer a new region. If you think of viticulture in South America, it was brought by Spanish people that conquered the South American continent, and they brought with them the cuttings of grape varieties for religious reasons. Mostly.
Eucharist, yeah.
If you think of a grape in South America, especially Chile, Argentina, that they call pais. I'm sure you know pais.
Yeah. Which is Listan Prieto.
Yeah. And this we know since a few decades, not more. It was called Mission in Northern America, in California. It's called Mission. It's the same. Why do they call it Mission? Because the missionaries were bringing it for the possibility to make wine for the church to celebrate the masses. So, and this grape, Listan Prieto, was introduced in South America, and then it spread everywhere. So it was to conquer the region and also for religion.
And we think that went with the second voyage of Columbus, I think, which was in 1493. Yeah, something like that.
We don't know exactly. I think it was in the mid 16th century.
Yeah. Oh, I thought it was a bit earlier than that. I mean, because I know Columbus planted a vineyard in what is now the Dominican Republic. I think I did an article about this and I sent it to you. But I mean, I suppose it's open to question, really. Yeah. I just wondered whether DNA analysis, the stuff you're doing, the profiling, has helped us to understand our history better. I mean, as you said, it's only 30 years old, this thing, but are you suddenly making these connections? You're talking about, Listan Prieto being the same thing as Pais, as same as Mission. Can you look at the way grapes moved around the world and learn something from DNA profiling?
Yes, what is fascinating when you start studying the genetic relationships between grapes and you discover a parentage, for example, you start thinking, how is that possible that this grape and this grape got together, had children? How is that possible?
Well, you look at some people's children sometimes and you think that as well.
I mean, it's the same. I have one particular story of a very, very obscure grape from the place I'm living, from Valais. It has a weird local name called Plancha.
Yeah.
Plancha. Nobody knows that. 200-300 bottles in the world every year. Another name of the grape is Gros Bourgogne. Gros Bourgogne, big Burgundian. Nobody knows why. So I studied the DNA of this variety, of course. And I was really amazed when I was able with DNA to show that this grape from Valais, Switzerland, almost unknown to anybody and almost extinct, is a natural child of Fourmint.
From Tokai.
From Tokai. And a natural brother of Harchlevelu, which is also the other grape from Tokai. And in 2012, I was visiting Tokai, and I was with Gergely Somoy, who is a wine journalist over there. And for no reason, I told him this story. Look, there is something very weird in my country we have this grape very closely related to Tokai, and I can't understand why. And he said, well, isn't there a place next to your house that is called Anivier? How do you know that? I have documents of people from Tokai who emigrated to Switzerland in this region.
So they took the grapes, the varieties.
Yeah.
How fascinating.
This was only in Hungarian, so I never came across that kind of historical information, and he did. You saved me. You explained to me.
There's always an explanation, right?
Yeah. So that kind of discovery is fascinating, because when you understand the origin of a grape, you also understand the movements, the migrations of the people, and the connections for trade, or for, as you said, for conquest or religion, and it makes it fascinating.
And it's also helped to debunk a few erroneous origin stories, isn't it? This idea that Shiraz came from Persia, modern day Iran, which is complete rubbish. It's a French grape variety crossed with a Swiss variety, isn't it? It's interesting, Syrah. Doesn't it have a bit of Swiss parentage in it?
No, it doesn't.
But there's a white grape variety. Is it Gouet Blanc or something like that in there?
No. It's Mondeuse Blanche.
Mondeuse Blanc. Is it, or Blanche?
Blanche, Blanche, from Savoie. Well, Savoie, very close to Switzerland, of course. Yeah. No, the Syrah is really interesting, and I like to tease my Australian friends, because since they write Shiraz on the label, and they say we are the only one to have kept the original historical name of Shiraz, this ancient city in Persia, which used to be a very important wine producing region in the past, of course, but it never had any vine of the Syrah grape variety. And the reason why the Australians write Shiraz is much more simple than that. We know for sure that Syrah was introduced in Australia in 1832.
By James Busby, presumably?
By James Busby, yeah. And he had very bad writing. So on the vines of Syrah that were introduced, he wrote the name, and somebody misread it. And instead of reading Syrah, they read Shiraz.
What a brilliant story. I didn't know that.
And they continued to call it because they were not able to read the writing of James Busby. That's as simple as that.
It's like doctor's handwriting. James Busby's handwriting was like a doctor.
Exactly.
What a brilliant story. I didn't know that. Just tell us quickly about how many grape varieties there are in the world. I read 10,000 somewhere, but I think that may include table grapes and things like that. I mean, your amazing book, which people, if you haven't got it, it's one of the greatest wine books ever written, called Wine Grapes, which you wrote with Jancis Robinson and Julia Harding, 2012. There are 1,368. Did you leave any out deliberately? Anything you thought, oh, damn, we should have put that in?
No, our policy back then was to include every single grape variety that was used to make wine available on the market.
Okay, yeah.
So we had a long list of varieties that did exist, are kept in grape collections, but they are not used for commercial wine production. So we left them out. That was on purpose. We missed a few. I think we have a total of 40 grape varieties that we missed. I remember after the publication, we opened a contest to people who would find a grape that was available and we missed, and 40 people were winning, and I have offered a bottle of Swiss wine to each one of them.
And did they take you up on it?
Yeah. And sometimes it was a grape variety. I don't even remember the names. It was, for example, a grape variety in southern Italy, and only one producer is making it in a small village. 500 bottles total. And I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Of course, we included them. If we were to publish a second edition of Wine Grapes, which I would very much love to do, Jancis and Julia and me, we are ready for that.
Fantastic.
But the editor will be the one who decides.
Yeah. And you'd add another 40 then, yeah?
Oh, we have more than that, because since 2012, many ancient obscure grape varieties have been revived and brought back to life, let's say. Many new crossings, new hybrids, and a lot of stuff has happened. New discoveries, new information about parentages have been published. So we will be if we do wine grapes today, way over 1,500 grapes.
Wow. And just quickly tell us what a crossing is and what a hybrid is, just for people listening, because there are natural crossings and there are sort of laboratory crossings. Would that be correct?
Yeah. It's good to have in mind that every single grape variety is the result of sexuality.
Yeah, good to know.
Crossing. Yeah. So every grape variety has one father, one mother, just like us, working the same. The vast majority of grape varieties that we wine lovers like, are the result of spontaneous crossings that happened in the vineyard thanks to the wind or small insects that would bring the pollen.
Or birds or whatever, yeah?
Not birds, but insects and wind that would bring the pollen of one.
They carry the pollen, right? Okay.
To the pistil of another one, and then you have the crossing. If you remain in the same botanical species, which is Vitis vinifera for grapes, I call it a crossing. If you use different species, other Vitis, non-vinifera, Vitis.
The Labrusca, for example,
Yeah. I call it a hybrid.
Okay, yeah.
And hybrids are always man-made. And they allow people to introduce some genetic characteristics, some genes from other Vitis species that do not exist in Vitis vinifera. For example, the resistance to powder mildew and downy mildew and botrytis and so on, they do exist in other Vitis. And by creating hybrids, you try to introduce these resistant genes into the Vitis vinifera.
And a variety that's crossed in a laboratory, effectively, could be something like Pinotage, right? Which in South Africa, which combined Pinot Noir with Cinsault, yeah?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, yeah. But they have to be, it's Vitis vinifera with Vitis vinifera rather than Vitis vinifera with something else, yeah?
In the case of Pinotage, yes, it's what I call a crossing.
I want to talk a little bit about famous grape varieties, because almost everybody listening to this podcast will be familiar with names like Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Syrah, Sauvignon Blanc, Riesling, maybe Chardonnay. Why have those grape varieties proved so popular? Why have they been planted all over the world? I mean, maybe less so for Riesling, but certainly the other five.
Almost all the varieties that you mentioned are from France in origin, except Riesling. Riesling is from Western Germany, of course. The reason I think is not ampelographic, is not genetic, it's culture. Because France has been and is still the reference for great wines in the world. Since centuries, the model that you want to reach are the wines from Bordeaux, from Burgundy, from Champagne, and so on. So it's not a surprise that these grapes were favored by people who wanted to plant a new vineyard in the New World. And what made them very famous is that if you look at France, Bordeaux and Burgundy, you never hear the name of the grapes. It's never on the label. The place is more important. The chateau or the climat in Burgundy are more important than the grape. But when they wanted to copy them, they took the grapes and they labeled with the name of the grapes.
Because they can't copy the terroir of Musigny, but they can take Pinot Noir and plant it in California.
Yeah, well, they did. You know that California, until the 1990s, were producing Chablis.
Exactly. They actually stole the name as well.
Yeah. Chablis or Burgundy. In Australia, they did as well.
Yeah.
So France was the reference. And I think that's why they took these grape varieties.
And are those grape varieties good travelers in a sense? And are there other varieties, I'm thinking about Nebbiolo, for example, or Sangiovese from Italy, that don't travel very well, that haven't made good wines in other parts of the world? Or they've made a few, but not many, in the same way that Pinot Noir has, for example.
Yeah, and I have no explanation for that. I don't understand why Chardonnay, for example, or Merlot is traveling so well. You can plant almost anywhere where you can have a vineyard and you can make a good wine out of it. Other varieties, as you said, Nebbiolo, are not traveling well outside Piedmont. it's extremely difficult to find very good Nebbiolo. I had a very good one recently, a friend of mine who is making wine in Arizona.
What?
Maynard James Keenan, who happens to be the lead singer of the band Tool, 4 times Grammy Award winning, if I remember well. And he's passionate about wine. He has a winery, Caduceo Cellar. And honestly, the first time I tasted his wine with him, I was thinking, okay, I will have to be polite. It will be like a liquid jam and I will not like it. And I was like, wow, this is so fresh. So
From Arizona.
From Arizona. 600 meters of elevation. And so pure, so beautiful. So I said, yes, your Nebbiolo is really fantastic.
How high is it? How high in Arizona?
1,600 meters.
1,600 meters. That's a seriously high vineyard. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
And any other varieties? We've talked about the famous ones and the less famous ones or the less well-travelled ones. Anything you'd like to see more of in the world? How about something Swiss? Petit Arvin, maybe. We'd like a bit more of that around the world.
Yeah, of course. I love Petit Arvin or Petit Arvin, because it comes from the region where I was born, where I'm today in Valais. And this one does not travel well.
Doesn't.
You can have some good examples in Aosta Valley, which is the neighboring valley. It's very close to Switzerland. But outside of this region, there are no very good Petit Arvin. I remember that Angelo Gaia planted it in 1992. And
in Piemonte, yeah?
In Piemonte, in Barbaresco, Barbaresco region. And I'm happy to know him since many years, because we are both members of the Académie Internationale du Vin. Yeah. It's in French.
Yeah.
And I remember asking him, Angelo, tell me, because everybody's speaking about you planting Petit Arvin, what happened? And his answer was, un disastro. Un disastro. It was terrible. The shoots were breaking.
It wasn't good.
It was never ripe. And he pulled it out.
But what else would you like to see more of in the world then? We're not going to see more Petit Arvin. Anything else you think, hey, we're missing a trick? I mean, it's interesting. It's fashion in a way, isn't it? The Albarino, which is a northwestern Iberian grape variety, has become fashionable. Assyrtiko from Greece has become, suddenly people are planting around the world. But anything else you think is underrepresented in the world that's a brilliant variety?
Yes, Savagnin.
Savagnin.
Yeah. You speak about Alvarinho, which is the Portuguese way. It's Albarino in Spanish. They are the same grape. And in Australia, they have planted tons of Albarino many years ago. And with DNA profiling, somebody thought, are you sure this is Albarino? I think it was 10 years ago. They did the DNA profiling, and it was not Albarino. It was Savagnin. And I wrote to many of my friends.
And you said, keep it.
I said, this is good news. I loved it. I mean, some have changed the label and they call it Savagnin, and some have pulled out and replaced with something else. Albarino is a good grape, but Savagnin is a great grape variety.
Okay.
I really love it because with Savagnin we make vin jaune in Jura. It also exists in Switzerland. Where they call it Haida, which is a local word in German meaning very, very, very old. It is a very old variety, and you can make any type of wine. You can have dry wines, you can have desert wines,
It's like Riesling in a sense. It's very adaptable.
Yeah. And it is not fashionable.
I mean, are we in danger of losing some exceptional grapes? I mean, how can we save them from being pulled out? Are there tiny little plantings of things you just think you've got to keep them in the ground?
Well, we are lucky enough to have many grape collections in most of the wine producing countries. So they are keeping them alive in grape collections. You have a row of at least 5 or 10 vines of each variety that are kept alive. You cannot give the variety in the form of a seed. Because the seed is the next generation.
It has to be a vine, a physical vine.
Be a living vine.
Yeah.
So, yes, some of them are at risk of disappearing. And the only thing that we must do is to plant them again, make wine, and drink them. It's the only way.
Yeah. And do you think some of these varieties that are lesser known varieties could be very useful in terms of climate change, that they could be varieties from Mediterranean climates that have been used to dry conditions? Are there any varieties that you think, hey, that could be really useful in the future?
Yes, of course. I'm publishing a new book in September for the International Wine and Food Society, and the title is Grape Varieties: Their Future.
Oh, great!
So it's a very small book. I will send you a copy.
Yeah,
and of course I speak about the grape varieties of the future, and all the indigenous, local, ancient grape varieties, for me, are part of the solution for climate change. Why? Because they have been around, for most of them, they have been around since the Middle Ages. So they have already lived many different climates. They have survived climate changes since the Middle Ages. So they have kind of the memory of the different climates, and for the future changes, they are the best prepared.
Is that epigenetics?
It is epigenetics, yeah. Yeah.
So it's like the grapevine has a memory and thinks, "Don't stress, I've done this before."
Yeah. It's a genetic memory, and you need to have very old varieties to have integrated this genetic memory.
And how different do you think the world's vineyards will look in 50 years' time? I mean, it's difficult to predict with climate models, but what we've lived through, certainly in England and I think the rest of Europe this summer, has been pretty scary, isn't it?
Absolutely. Of course, I don't have the answer. Nobody has a crystal ball to read in. But what will certainly happen is that vines will be planted higher in elevation, higher in latitude as well, of course. Yeah. Water will be a big question. For example, in Switzerland, it is allowed to irrigate the vineyards. It's not allowed in France. Otherwise, you would lose the appellation. I think they will have to change the law at some point, because if you don't water with that kind of temperatures, all the vineyards will die. The style of wine will change as well, because it's contradictory, because we want wines with less alcohol, yet we have more sunshine, more heat, so more maturity in the berries, so more sugar, more alcohol. So we need to find a balance.
And any other grape varieties? I mean, you've talked about varieties that have a history of being planted in hot, dry regions, thinking, obviously the Mediterranean, maybe North Africa. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
yes, as well. North Africa, Scandinavia as well. They have planted already vineyards.
That's the new frontier, yeah?
Yeah, new frontiers, yeah.
That's what I'll bring when we have dinner, because I've got a bottle of wine from Norway.
Oh, I never had one.
Well, you will have it when we have dinner. Okay. You're going to bring the Petit Alvin from Arizona, and we'll also bring something else as well.
It's Nebbiolo from Arizona.
Sorry, Nebbiolo from Arizona, yeah.
But also, I was mentioning ancient grape varieties, which are the ones I like the most. There are also all these new hybrids that are created and that are planted. As a wine lover, I'm not drinking them very often. I try, of course.
These peewees?
PVs, yeah. PVs. Hybrids in general. PVs are really those hybrids that were created to fight against fungal diseases.
Yeah. So downy mildew or botrytis or something.
But more and more hybrids are created also to fight against drought, for example. So these are not PVs. These are important in terms of viticulture in the world. And I always say that I see two really interesting solutions with that kind of hybrids. The first one is what they do, for example, in Champagne, they are planting Voltis, for example, which is a white hybrid, which is allowed in the appellation up to 10% in the blend. It doesn't change completely the wine. You almost don't notice it, but you can plant this grape around the villages. So less spraying, less chemicals, because it's very resistant. So a better image of viticulture is better for human health. It's better for everyone. So this is one of the good thing of PVs or hybrids. And the other one, and nobody's listening to what I'm saying.
I am.
if you think of all these industrial wines that you find in supermarkets, sometimes they are sold in like a bottle of milk or something. All these cheap wines in supermarkets, the people who buy them, they don't care about the variety. So for that kind of wine, you plant PVs, you plant hybrids. It's better for the environment, better for human health, and cheaper to make because you don't have to spray them.
So that could be a big change then, couldn't it?
That could be a big change. For billions of liters in the world every year, plant PVs. But please, at Romanée Conti,
no PVs.
Pinot Noir.
Okay, that sounds good. Listen, we could talk for hours. It's so fascinating. So your new book is going to be on the future of wine grapes, yeah. And just the last question, and that'll be out when you said in the autumn with that book, and we're hoping all of us for a second edition of wine grapes. But I mean that's another 10 years' work, isn't it? Probably.
Oh, it would take at least 1 full year of work, of hard work.
And not 10 years, but 1 year we have to do nothing else but that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. The last question is, how do you get away from wine? I mean, you live in Switzerland, so are you a skier? Are you a walker?
I used to be a skier, but my knees do not agree with me anymore. I'm a walker. And we have a lot of beautiful mountains, and I like to go for a walk in the vineyards. So it's also a way to see, how is it going this year? What is the production? Veraison just happened much earlier than the other years. For example, this year is very, very early. So I never go away from wine. And
you're a wine drinker as well, and a wine lover as well. Like you're not just an academic studying it.
Of course, and I have many bottles at home, and I'm always happy to share my passion with friends. Blind tasting, always, to try to guess the grape variety, guess the region. So it's a fun game, yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to catching up with you very soon. It's been too long. So we're going to have the Arizona Nebbiolo, we're going to have the Norwegian wine, and we're going to drink something a little bit more special as well. Anyway, José, thank you so much for spending your time. Can't wait for the new book. Please send it to me. Everybody, buy that book, Wine Grapes. It's an absolutely brilliant book. It's indispensable for a wine lover. You've really got to have that in your library. Anyway, so great talking to you, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you very much, Tim. Thank you.
Well, that was so much fun. It made me want to open a bottle of Sauvignon immediately. And I love that story about Shiraz and James Busby's handwriting. Next week on Cork Talk, my guest is the Master of Wine, Victoria Mason. Join me then. Thanks for listening to Cork Talk. If you want to read more reports, articles and tasting notes by me, go to my website, timatkin.com. You can also follow me on Twitter, @TimAtkin, and on Instagram, @TimAtkinMW. See you next week.